How's it going out there? Hey, this lesson is on the Bebop Dorian mode. Now, this is a very confusing bebop scale. You know, the bebop scales are very weird. They haven't been formalized properly yet. We talked about this in the lesson on the dominant bebop blues scale. And I wanted to make a note that, you know, music theory didn't come before music. Music was first, and then music theory came second to analyze what people were doing and to teach it. So the bebop scales haven't been, I guess, only been around 70 years or better. So they haven't had the 200 years of experience with them, and they haven't been written about that much. Now, the Dorian bebop scale that we're going to be working on is the one that's a Dorian mode with a passing note between the lowered third and the fourth degree. Now, there's another one out there that has it's like a dominant bebop dominant scale with a minor third. I like to call that one just a minor bebop scale, but we'll get into that one some other time. So I want to use this as an introduction to the Bebop Dorian mode because I think it's a fascinating scale. Now, against the C minor chord, basically we're going, a Dorian mode would be a B flat scale, wouldn't it? And what we're doing here is they're putting a note between the lowered third and then the fourth. So we get this sound. Okay? Now, and that works fine against a minor chord. But what's cool about this scale is it works great against a dominant blues progression. Real quick, I want to talk about a bebop scale. And a bebop scale is 8 tones instead of 7. But the more I look at it and hear it, I realize that the bebop scale has within it target notes. So just close your eyes for a second and listen to this. Do you hear how that, we want to hear that scale there, that note, that half step away when I did the dominant, right? We want to hear on ascending passages, we want to hear the note it's going up to. Wherever that chromatic passing tone is, okay, those two half steps are pointing towards another tone. So it's kind of a target note that the scale brings out. Descending, it uses a different note. Descending, we get other sounds. Against the minor chord, we get this. You hear it? Or against that scale against the C minor. Okay, so kind of we want to hear this note. So descending and ascending brings out two different notes. Now, when we use this scale against the dominant chord, we get a scale that I like to call, actually, instead of calling it a Dorian mode, it really isn't. If you look at it and compare it to a C dominant 7, it's actually like, I like to call it a bebop mixolydian mode. Because if I look at these notes, C, D, E flat, E, F, G, A, B flat, C. Well, that is actually an F bebop scale. if I went to the 5th degree of that scale and played that scale, it would be a Mixolydian mode, right? So this would be a C Mixolydian Bebop scale. But it's been dubbed Bebop Dorian. So, you know, so we won't argue with that. We'll just play it, okay? Now, when I play it against the dominant chord, it doesn't bring out the 4th so much as it brings out the major 3rd. Listen. Hear that note? So I've got those half steps right there, and it brings. So it works really well against a blues in a dominant key. So this scale I've been playing for years. I just didn't know what to call it. So now we're going to call it Bebop Dorian. Incorrectly labeled, I might say. At least in this instant, it would be fine against a minor chord. Here's what's funny. I think about a bebop scale, it's not only defined by its chord, by its formula, its scale formula, it's defined by the chord it's being played over. So I find that interesting. I think it's more defined by the chord it's being played over than the actual makeup of the scale. So keep that in mind. Now, over the 5 chord in this particular solo, I went back to the C dominant bebop because which is actually, never mind, I don't want to confuse you any more than you already are. Let's learn this scale. In the last lesson, we learned a bunch of licks, but I want to learn a solo. So let's just learn this 12-bar solo, and I think you're going to see how much fun it is to play, and you get a certain texture, a certain sound by using the scale over the chord progression. I think that's about it. Download the PDF, get the track, and let's get into it with some close-ups. Now we're going to talk a little bit before we get started in the solo, again, about some of these target notes. Okay, so you ready? Here we go.